Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Burdett, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening. Banks bail on Bosasa as allegations of bribery and corruption intensify. And thousands of jobs may be on the line as the controversial company files for voluntary liquidation.
I'd rather live with a resident wanting to kill me because I closed the road, unlike the residents wanting to kill me because a bridge has collapsed.
Better safe than sorry. The mayor of Joburg to close one of the busiest bridges in the city for 7 months amid concerns over serious structural problems. A heartbreaking story. A mother begs for justice after her little girl is murdered, allegedly by a man who thought she was possessed and crying too much. But we start with this. 10 years after claims around Bosasa bribery first emerged, it's finally closing down. The company, now known as African Global Operations, is applying for voluntary liquidation. This after FNB and ABSA officials announced they would be closing the company's bank accounts. It leaves its biggest client, Correctional Services, in something of a fix. The department has now set up a war room to deal with what could become a crisis. Govan Whittles takes a look.
In 2009, an SIU report uncovers how Bosasa allegedly bribed Correctional Services Commissioner Linda Mti for catering and security contracts. But nothing happens. 10 years on, the company has a different name. It makes headlines again when former COO Angelo Agrizi tells the State Capture Commission the SIU was spot on. Just a week later, the hawks swoop on Agrizi and other Bosasa officials. And on Monday, the company submits its voluntary liquidation application to the High Court after being notified banks will close its accounts. Several government departments are now uncertain about the future of their contracts with the controversial firm. Correctional Services is setting up a war room to deal with the fallout of the liquidation, which will affect 46,000 inmates at 7 facilities. But it's not the only department looking at its contracts with African Global Operations.
I have asked the Ethics Council to review any business that the provincial government has ever done with Bosasa.
Police and Prisons Union, POPCRU, is welcoming the closure of Bosasa's accounts.
The disintegration of facilities is one of the issues that has actually happened because I think even when you look at the services they provided, there's nothing substantial to actually show that there was work done.
African Global Operations spokesperson Papa Leshabane is refusing to comment on the impact of the company's downfall. Govan Whittles, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the sudden announcement that the company would go into voluntary liquidation came as a huge shock to some staff. African Global Operations, formerly Bosasa, has in excess of 4,500 employees who will be likely affected by looming job losses. Security guards working at the Lindela Repatriation Centre, which is managed by Bosasa, staged a demonstration today demanding better pay and improved working conditions. They were threatening to go on a full-blown strike until they found out they could soon be entirely out of work.
We were not aware all along. We were only informed upon our arrival here that the company is experiencing that kind of situation. So we are very, very worried because what will mean is employees' jobs are on stake.
The nuclear deal that nearly happened. That was the focus today at the State Capture inquiry as former Treasury Director General Lungisa Fuzile appeared for the second time. He's detailed the rocky relationship between Treasury and former President Jacob Zuma. Erin Bates has those details.
Lungisa Fuzile testified on why former President Jacob Zuma and Treasury clashed.
It was the nuclear procurement project, the purchase of shares in Engen by Petro SA, the matters relating to SAA, a few approvals, the Social Security grant contract, the Dental Asia matter, the closure of Gupta accounts by banks.
Treasury found nuclear procurement would be financially unsustainable. It was predicted servicing the debt of such a project could reach 95% of GDP by 2040. But some weren't interested in Treasury's report.
There was an attempt not to go through it in as thorough a way as we are even doing here. And precisely because it was saying things that people didn't like.
Who was dissatisfied about National Treasury?
Definitely President Zuma.
Treasury's Chief Director of Macroeconomic Policy, Catherine McLeod, testifies next. Proceedings resume on Tuesday. Erin Bates, Johannesburg.
Rather safe than sorry, that's the message from the Mayor of Joburg, who's decided to close one of the city's busiest bridges for repairs. 12,000 cars a day use the M2 West Bridge. It'll close for repairs at the end of this month and only reopen in October. Kailihle Kumalo reports on a drastic but important step that is going to cause traffic chaos in the Johannesburg CBD.
The M2 motorway between Crown Interchange and Maritzburg Street will get a facelift. That's because the structural integrity of the concrete has been reduced.
I'd rather live with a resident wanting to kill me because I closed the road, unlike the residents wanting to kill me because the bridge has collapsed.
We're seeing more cracks in the concrete structure, as well as the water ingress into the concrete structure, which is weakening the both columns and column heads. And because of that, it's not safe to let traffic on the eastbound lane.
In 2015, 2 people died and others sustained injuries after scaffolding collapsed, while the Greyston off-ramp bridge in Sandton was under construction. There are over 900 bridges in the city, but only 6% are safety compliant.
It is a crisis, we admit it, but unfortunately we can only operate on the basis of the budget available.
Motorists are divided about the construction work.
It seems as that there will be a very serious challenge regarding traffic inside town.
We have to be patient because I don't think they will just close it for fun, you understand, but we'll benefit at the end.
The city is promising it has a traffic accommodation plan in a bid to minimize the inconvenience for motorists using the M2. Kailihle Kumalo, Johannesburg.
That M2 West Bridge will close from March. Classes at the Mangosuthu University of Technology have been suspended following violent clashes at the Umlazi campus today. 9 students have been arrested on public violence charges. Fires were set and students pelted police with stones. Now, student leaders claim they were being provoked by police. The protest began over students who'd not been paid their allowances. University management met with student leaders. They later reported that only 46 students had not been paid due to incorrect account details. Parents and teachers at Pinedene Primary in Cape Town are worried about safety at the 50-year-old school. Walls are cracked, railings are loose, walls are mouldy and the building contains asbestos. Some classes at Pinedene Primary are now being taught under trees. The Western Cape Education Department admits there's asbestos at the school but denies the building poses a danger. It says inappropriate building materials used will be addressed over the next 10 years. Parents are calling on Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga to take urgent action, fearing another Driehoek-type tragedy, which claimed the lives of 4 school children recently. ANC National spokesperson Pulemabi is back at work. This after the party's internal grievance panel cleared him of sexual harassment charges laid by a female staffer. The woman who laid the complaint is to be reintegrated into Luthuli House. The panel says her concerns must be addressed. The panel also recommended the ANC urgently adopt a sexual harassment policy.
Like all cities.
Gauteng's East Rand now, and a shocking incident has highlighted how we are failing our children. A 7-month-old baby girl was beaten to death with a garden hose last week, because she wouldn't stop crying. The man allegedly responsible claimed little Mbalenhle Ngwenya was possessed. Now her heartbroken mother is demanding justice, as Masego Ratlacha reports.
This is cell phone footage of baby Mbalenhle Ngwenya. It was taken just a few days before her murder. She was brutally killed, allegedly by a neighbor, after she started crying. The little girl's mother, Zandile, is heartbroken.
The most ukuthi akagulanga if ever bekagulile at least bengizothi ngile ka doctor ngaye ibhedlela ngahluleka and engizisa ubhlungu ukuthi futhi ukho umntwana kimi akasho.
The child's paternal grandmother had come to drink here at this shebeen. When the little girl began to wail, a friend offered to take her to her home and make the child some juice. This was the last time anyone saw baby Mbalenhle alive. Zandile is demanding answers from the grandmother. She doesn't understand why she couldn't reach the old woman for several hours after the incident. A 49-year-old man has been arrested for the murder and is expected to appear in court on Tuesday. All that's left following the tragedy are these few items of baby clothing. Overcome by grief, the mother says she burnt the rest. Masehora Hlacha, Duduza.
Still ahead on eNews, tension is rising between India and Pakistan after last week's deadly attack in Kashmir.
And in your business news, the weaker rand has made it one of the most volatile currencies in the world. All eyes are on budget.
Talking business now with Rufiwe. Budget coming up on Wednesday. That, of course, is going to be big news. But in the meantime, news of a bailout for South African Airways.
Absolutely. So they've been able to secure about 3.5 billion rand to keep it going until June. And you mentioned the budget speech. They're going to be listening carefully to see if Tito Mboweni is going to be offering up that 21.7 billion that they need over the next 3 years to keep operating. So what they say here is that this 3.5 billion rand will help them in terms of reaching that goal of breaking even by 2021. For now, though, what they have to deal with is a 9.7 billion rand debt, which has to be paid by the end of March. So we were speaking to the spokesperson of SAA earlier, who did say that they are renegotiating payment plans and they will be making some payments by March. So the company says it is on a good footing. It just needs that funding so that it continues operating and really restructuring as it has been. Another thing that came in the news today, Sally, as you would have seen, is stories around the operating model of the company. So the chief executive has highlighted that they will be altering that operating model just to optimize the business operations within SAA. And let's actually just listen to how exactly it'll work.
The entity as the airline remains, SAA will remain as a single entity, but will have 3 business units that are superimposed, if you like, on the current route network that we have as we operate in the 3 segments: international, regional Africa, and domestic market in South Africa, where we are looking at doing 2 things. 1, to increase the efficiencies, and 2, to bring more accountability.
So not an unbundling, but business units are separate. There is a difference.
Sally, there is a difference.
How are the markets today?
So the markets also had a pretty good day. The JSE closed just over 1% higher today, with gains across the board. Gold miners who fared the best amid positive mood in the global markets. So basically, progress around the trade talks between US and China have lifted sentiment. On the commodities front, bad news for motorists. Oil is trading at over $66 a barrel, its highest level since November last year. OPEC supply cuts are at the forefront of the rally we are seeing. Meanwhile, the gold price is benefiting from a weaker dollar. Looking at the local unit now, the rand is still weaker at 14 rand 14 against the greenback. The local currency is expected to stay at these levels until that all-important budget speech on Wednesday, Sally.
Thank you very much, Rufiwe. Let's take a quick look at international news now. And tension is high between India and Pakistan after last Thursday's suicide bomb attack, which killed 40 in the disputed Kashmir territory. Reports today as well of a gunfight between Kashmiri militants and Indian troops groups, which has left 9 people dead. Police in India say they've killed 2 suspects linked to last week's bombing. A Pakistan-based militant group, Jaish-e-Mohammed, claimed responsibility for that attack. India's accused Pakistan of harbouring the group, but Pakistan denies this. And today there have been protests in India over the attacks. We'll go to our weather centre. Louis standing by there. Good evening, Louis, for your live weather report. And then an unlikely pair of 4-legged friends find companionship with each other. Let's get your latest weather news now with Louis Fernandez in Cape Town. Good evening, Louis. It's been quite a scorcher up here in Joburg. More of the same tomorrow?
Absolutely, Sally. Things have settled down after last week's hectic rainfall that took place over South Africa. And if we take a look at the satellite imagery, we can see how clear it's been over the country. There was a bit of rain along the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal today, but that layer of deep tropical moisture that was moving over South Africa last week has now shifted out to the east and is over the Mozambican Channel. But taking a look at what happens overnight, we're just going to have some moisture moving in from the coastal areas, bringing in a bit of fog onto the eastern high ground and for the Atlantic coastline. And then heading into your Tuesday afternoon, sunny to partly cloudy for most of South Africa, a warm to hot day in the east, but some very high temperatures developing over the western interior. And in the Northern Cape, we can see just how hot it's going to get. 39 for Uppington and Prieska, but towards the coastline, a bit of fog in the area keeps things a little bit cooler. The Western Cape will also experience very high temperatures, above 35 degrees for much of the interior of the province. And in the Eastern Cape, it will also be a hot one for parts of the interior of this province, but towards the coastal areas, temperatures staying below 30. It's going to be a lovely summer's day for KwaZulu-Natal, but quite cool at first, closer to the Drakensberg. Kokstad starting off below 10 degrees Celsius. And it will also be a chilly morning on the Mpumalanga Highveld, but eMakhazeni and Ermelo warm to a very comfortable 24 degrees later on. Some morning fog in Limpopo, but in the afternoon it will be partly cloudy, dry and warm to hot over the area. And in the northwest, after a clear start to the day, you'll see some cloud cover bubbling up, but there is no rain in the forecast. Pretty much the same for the Free State, where it will be hot for Bloemfontein at 32 degrees. And then finally for Gauteng, you might need a jersey if you're heading outdoors. First thing in the morning is Johannesburg, a little bit cooler than what it has been lately, 13 degrees, but the afternoon is going to be warm to hot once again in the upper 20s for much of the province. Let's take a look at what Wednesday brings to your parts of South Africa. And while there could be some drizzle along the south coast, the rest of the country will be dry, and we're going to have a sunny day in the eastern parts with temperatures climbing even higher. And then on Thursday, it stays dry with high temperatures over the central interior, including Gauteng. But to the east of that, we'll see the return of a few showers and thunderstorms. That's all from the Weather Centre. Sally, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Louis. Summer still alive and kicking clearly. And finally, it seems life's timing is sometimes just right. Molly the beagle and an abandoned possum have been inseparable since they crossed paths. Molly had recently lost her litter of puppies, while the baby possum had been abandoned by its mother. Now, the possum mostly keeps close to Molly by hitching a ride on her back. But that's not always possible. Possums are nocturnal, so Molly patiently waits under the tree where her furry friend sleeps. To recap your top stories this evening, banks bail on Bosasa as allegations of bribery and corruption intensify, and thousands of jobs may be on the line as the controversial company files for voluntary liquidation.
I'd rather live with a resident wanting to kill me because I closed the road, unlike the residents wanting to kill me because a bridge has collapsed.
Rather safe than sorry, the mayor of Joburg to close one of the busiest bridges in the city for 7 months amid concerns over serious structural problems. That's your news this Monday night from me and the team. Very good night to you.